pregnancy, sex.
Sex? Did you say sex?
As prescribed, take your medication, exercise, and diet. On 88.5 Sufra FM, tell a friend, call your neighbor. Casualty 911 is on.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Casualty 911 on 88.5 Sufra FM this rainy Monday morning, Monday the 18th of May 2026. It's been a long time and I would like to apologize to our regular listeners and viewers for the break-in programming that we have had over the past weeks due to circumstances beyond our control. It is a pleasure to be back here this morning, and I hope that you will enjoy today's program. I am your host, Fawn Minviel. Louisa is not with me today. However, we will be joined a little later by our guest, Mr. Caleb Paul. I will talk a little bit more about what we will be discussing in a few. I would like to thank all of you for joining us this morning. And I would like to speak about just a little about World Hypertension Day, which was observed yesterday. Yesterday, the 17th of May, was observed as World Hypertension Day under the theme, Controlling Hypertension Together. That is a topic that is not new to us. I think it is something that most of us are aware that has been a condition that has been affecting St. Lucians. It's very widespread in our communities that people have issues with their blood pressure, have been diagnosed with hypertension. Some people may actually be walking out there with high blood pressure unknowingly. Hypertension is usually called the silent killer, and there's a reason for that. Your blood pressure may be very high and there may be absolutely no symptoms. You will not feel differently, but the pressure is high. And that pressure, when it is high, it's not being monitored, it's not being managed. It puts us at risk for cardiovascular disease, for strokes, for basic issues with our sexual health and so on. There are a lot of things that can be impacted. Our health can be impacted in many ways by hypertension. This morning, I just want to share a couple of key messages with you, just a few things that I would like us to remember, because our show today is not really about hypertension. However, I would like to share a few thoughts with you. Number one, it is that we need to know what our blood pressure readings are, which means that we would have to check our blood pressure on a regular basis and record the blood pressure. That can be done free of charge at every wellness center in St. Lucia. You can get your blood pressure checked, and when you get it checked, you record it. Yes, it's being recorded at the wellness center on the electronic system, but for your own information, you need to have it recorded where you can have easy access to it so that you can monitor and know whether any changes are occurring, whether it's going up, whether it's normal. And what is a normal blood pressure reading? Generally, it would be below 120/80. As we know, the blood pressure number tells us what the force of the blood on our blood vessels is when the heart pumps and when it contracts. That is why we have two numbers. So the top number would be when it pumps. The second number is when it relaxes. So if you have no idea what your blood pressure is at a given time, it means that you don't know whether it is normal, whether it is high, whether it needs intervention. So we need to monitor by checking the blood pressure and recording it. Many persons have home monitoring kits. Sometimes we don't use them as we should, or sometimes you may not be aware of which monitor is validated or recommended. That is information that you can get from the Ministry of Health to know whether your kit has been validated. You can search on the internet. We also have the QR code on some of our social media cards this month in observance of hypertension, World Hypertension Day. So if you are at home and you are going to check your blood pressure, it is advised that you do about 2 readings. Do about 2 readings and then you record. So when you record, you take a note of the date, the time, and the reading. Another issue related to hypertension is that we really need to pay attention to our lifestyle habits. Our lifestyle habits in terms of what we eat. One of the key elements in terms of nutrition when we talk about hypertension is our intake of salt. How much salt do we consume? It's recommended that we have less than 1 teaspoon of salt a day. So that salt would include the salt that we put in everything that we cook, the salt in the bread, in the crackers, in everything that we consume for the day. One of the things that can help to reduce our salt intake is to reduce the amount of processed, ultra-processed foods that we eat. A lot of the for example, snacks, the chips, the cheesies and cheese curls and all of those snacks. And even some of those snacks that we might consider healthier, for example, the peanuts, the cashew nuts, and so on. Some of them are salted and they have a lot of salt. And some people really love to just pour out the remaining salt from the packet into their mouths after they have eaten the nuts. So that is one way that we're taking in quite a bit of salt. So these are the things that we need to pay attention to in terms of how much salt we take in every day. Secondly, we have physical activity, and we talk about physical activity all the time when we talk about chronic non-communicable diseases, hypertension being one of them. Being physically active for 30 minutes, about 30 minutes, 5 days a week, can help to reduce the risk of hypertension as well as to manage hypertension. So some people find it very difficult. It takes sometimes a lot of planning and it takes commitment to be able to get those 30 minutes of exercise in on a regular basis. One of the tricks is if you start and you want to be consistent, that you try your best not to miss 2 days in a row. If you miss 1 day, no matter whether you feel good or not, try to do something the next day. It can be very difficult to go back after you have taken a long break. So unless there is illness or something very significant, something, that you just cannot avoid, that prevents you once you have started, try your best not to miss a day. So 30 minutes, moderate. So that means you can talk, but not necessarily sing an entire song. So if you're walking, you should be walking briskly. But at the same time, I will hurry to say that walking slowly is better than no walking at all. So once we can get our movement in, it is a plus for our health in terms of hypertension and other chronic non-communicable diseases. When we are physically active, when we eat well, it helps us to manage our weight. And weight is one of those things that's a contributing factor to whether we have hypertension or not. Thirdly, we need to drink water. You'd be surprised to know there are so many people who don't really drink much water at all in the 24 hours of the day that we have. I see somebody smiling at me. Okay, yes, so we really need to try to drink water. Usually we talk about 8 glasses of water a day. Some people drink everything other than water. So some people may drink a soft drink, juice, beers, you name it. But the water is very difficult for some people to consume. So one of the things is, if you're having difficulty drinking water, you may want to flavor it naturally with some fruits, a little lemon, some watermelon. Use something that you like, not necessarily to buy the pre-packaged flavored water that we have on the supermarket shelves, because there are a lot of additives and other things in there that are not necessarily healthy. Sometimes we see things and they say 0 grams of sugar, meaning that they are sugar-free, no sugar, but they're actually using some other sweetener that can be very dangerous to our health, because we are consuming it thinking that we're not taking in any sugar, we're not taking in anything else. So pure and natural water is always the best choice, number one choice to stay hydrated. Next, we'll talk about limiting our alcohol intake. Alcohol does not really contribute anything beneficial to our health, but culturally, many people drink, maybe socially, because it's just a way, a part of the whole socialization process. Some people abuse it. Some people are binge drinkers. We tend to think that we are not binge drinking unless we are falling down drunk on the roadside and so on. But generally, the recommendation used to be 1 drink per day for ladies and 2 per day for men. So a drink would be a beer or a shot of the hard liquor. But honestly speaking, there really is no benefit. The World Health Organization has already said there's no safe intake of alcohol, but we choose to do it. So we need to try to limit our intake of alcohol. Alcohol can also contribute to dehydration. So if you're not drinking water and you're drinking alcohol, you're not doing anything good for your body. The next is to quit smoking. And that is actually our topic for the day. We will be talking about smoking. We'll be talking about tobacco use. We'll be talking about smoking in public places. And we will be joined by our guest, Mr. Caleb Paul, in a few minutes. He's just running a little late. So he had a little issue that he needed to deal with. He will be joining us. Mr. Caleb Paul works with the Substance Abuse Advisory Council Secretariat, which is part of the Ministry of Health, and they have been doing quite a bit of work as it relates to tobacco. World Tobacco Day is coming up on the 31st of May. It falls on a Sunday, which means that, you know, we are actually speaking about it before. Next week, Monday, is a holiday. So we have pushed it up to today so that we can speak about it. Mr. Paul will be talking to us about the Global Youth Tobacco Survey, which was administered at the secondary schools island-wide some time ago. We had spoken a bit about it on the program, but now that the results are in, he will be speaking to us about the results, telling us what they were able to derive from the data, what was interesting, what did they learn about tobacco use among students, the students who participated in the survey. Give us a general idea of what's happening on the ground, if there are any trends in terms of an increase or decrease in the use of tobacco products, the way forward in terms of managing whatever is happening on the ground. He will also be speaking to us about an ongoing campaign, which is the Smoking Deterrent Campaign. And I'm sure he will have quite a bit of information to share with us on that topic. So Mr. Paul will be here shortly. And I'm looking forward to having that discussion with him. We're just waiting for him. Sometimes, you know, we have a little bit of technical difficulties when we have virtual guests. He will be joining us virtually this morning. Unfortunately, he's not in studio with us. Mr. Paul has been a guest on the program before. He's not new to the program. So for those of you who are regular viewers and listeners, you might have seen or heard him on the program before. He has been on with me. He has been on with Louisa as well. So he's not a new guest, but he's always a very informative guest. He always gives us quite a bit of information in terms of whatever topic we are discussing. We're having a little delay, so we will talk a little bit about, we will go back to hypertension. We'll go back to hypertension for a little bit while we try to get that sorted out. So let us go back a little bit. We talked about hypertension. We talked about some of the things that need to be done in terms of managing and reducing the risk of hypertension. For those of you who have not had your blood pressure checked for a very long time, You may want to consider going to your nearest wellness center to get your blood pressure checked. You may want to, if you have a family member with a monitor at home, to have it checked at home. One of the things that we hear a lot in the community is that people say, I will know when my pressure is high. And as I said earlier, sometimes the pressure can be so high, very often, the pressure can be so high and there are no actual signs and symptoms. So it's one of those things that you really need to check to ensure that your pressure is not high. Another thing that checking allows, if you know what is normal for you, in as much as we have a threshold, we say, okay, 120/80 or less is normal. You need to know what your actual normal blood pressure is. So say, for example, you're one of those people whose blood pressure is usually 90 something or 90 something over 60 something, 95/65, thereabout in that range. And you're monitoring and you notice, okay, it's 115/75. You will notice if it's creeping up, in as much as it may still be within the normal threshold, it is not your normal. So there may be things that you can do to try to manage it so that it does not continue to increase, particularly if that increase is happening very quickly. One of the things that can contribute as well is our stress. We need to know how to manage our stress. Recently, we had two of our nurses, Nurse Alfred and Nurse Gabriel, on the program talking about stress awareness and stress management. And one of the key things they mentioned was understanding what triggers your stress. What situations would lead you to feel stressed? So if you know what it is, you know how to prepare. You prepare yourself to deal with those situations in a healthier way so that it does not necessarily impact you as badly as if you just let it be. So for example, you know that when you walk into work and people don't answer you when you greet, it sets you off. For some people, it can turn around their whole day, you know. It can upset their whole day. They get stressed about it. But you can, as we say, program yourself. You already know what to expect. So the way that you look at the situation would help you to avoid becoming so terribly stressed if it happens. So the way we look at the situation is a key factor in how stressed we are. That really helps to determine how stressed you are. And the other thing is to know what works for you in terms of managing your stress. There are positive ways to cope with stress and negative ways to cope with stress. We don't want to be coping with stress in ways that would create even more of an issue for us health-wise. So say, for example, somebody who, anytime they feel stressed, they go and they have 4, 5, 6 drinks. Or they go and they smoke. If they're maybe a smoker who smokes less than 6 cigarettes a day, if they're stressed, they may go and smoke 12, double the amount in a day. That is bad for our health. These are negative ways of coping with stress. So we need to know what are some of the positive things that we can do that actually work for us. So many times people talk about exercise. Exercise can be very helpful in terms of dealing with stress. No matter what it is, it could be a walk, it could be cleaning, it could be jogging, it could be swimming, whatever works for you. These are positive ways of dealing with stress. So we really need to try to know these things, be aware of our triggers, the things that set us off, and also to know what are some of the positive ways of dealing with those situations. And that is one of the things that we need to know in terms of dealing with hypertension. If, for example, you know that you have been going through a very stressful situation, and many things can be stressful, many things. They could be things like you just finished building your house, you're moving in. Yes, it's something good, it's an achievement, but it can also be stressful to have to pack up everything that you had, get to the house and unpack everything. That can be stressful for some people. You have a new baby, you're happy to have a baby, but that can also be a stressful time because it means that you will be losing a lot of sleep. You have a lot of responsibilities, and all of those things can impact your blood pressure. So if you know you have been going through a stressful time, you may want to just check and make sure that everything is okay with you, that your blood pressure is okay. Remember that the wellness centers are open 8 to 4:30. Easy access to having your blood pressure checked. There's also, anytime you go to the hospital, obviously your blood pressure will be checked. But in terms of monitoring, just to monitor, that is important. I don't think anybody should be saying that it's been 5 years and they never had their pressure checked because they don't get sick. So they only get their pressure checked if they're sick, and they have, obviously, if you go to any health facility, a wellness center, a hospital, and you're sick, your pressure will be checked. That should not be the only time. You should be actively monitoring your blood pressure to ensure that you're not, as we say, a ticking time bomb. You're not one of those people that you hear, hey, the person was just there and I heard that person had a stroke, and it's as a result of extremely high blood pressure or whatever, cholesterol and so on. So we need to take care of all of those things to ensure that we get our regular checks, to ensure that we basically know our status. So you need to know what your status is so that you need to know what your status is so that you know what steps you need to take to live a healthier lifestyle, to be healthier. Our guest has indicated that he will be with us shortly, so I'm just asking that those of you who are tuned in, please do not leave. He will be joining us. We will have the discussion. As I mentioned earlier, for those of you just joining us, we are expecting a guest, Mr. Caleb Paul, who will be joining us to speak about World No Tobacco Day. And within that discussion, that chat, we will be talking about the Global Youth Tobacco Survey, which was administered to secondary school students island-wide, as well as we will be talking about an ongoing campaign. It's a smoking deterrent campaign being led by the Substance Abuse Advisory Council Secretariat of the Ministry of Health. It is taking place with various activities, communities, and other activities, which Mr. Paul will go into a lot more detail with. And I am really looking forward to him talking about particularly the Global Youth Tobacco Survey, because usually I think when we think about tobacco and tobacco smoking, tobacco use, probably we don't really have young people in mind. I know that many people think of tobacco use as more of an adult thing, maybe older men and so on, not necessarily young school-aged individuals. So it will be interesting to hear from Mr. Paul what they found in the survey of students. There are so many different factors related to tobacco use. There's the advertising aspect of it. There's the access aspect of it. Do they have access to tobacco? How do they access it? Is there an interest in using tobacco? Who is using tobacco? Whether it's girls, whether it's boys, and so on. Is it more the boys or the girls? So that information is something that is very, very interesting, and I think it would be very important and helpful for parents to hear and to have an indication of what really students think about tobacco, who may be probably at risk of using, what number of students or what percentage of students have thought about using tobacco, who may be on the fence, how many of them have actually tried it, and so on. There's a lot of information that we can get from those surveys. And I really want to thank the students who participated, who honestly answered the question, so that it helps. It helps in terms of deciding what type of programming, what can be done to deal with the situation of tobacco use, particularly for that age group. And Mr. Paul, when he comes on, I'm sure will talk to us about the way forward. How are they going to use that information? Because, many times we hear about surveys, we hear that the survey is taking place, you ask people to participate, but at the end, you don't really know what came out of it. What data, what information did they get from the survey? How will the information be used? What will be done to try to address any of the issues, to address any of the issues that they might have noticed from collecting that data. So all of those things I am really looking forward to Mr. Paul talking about. I can see that our time is going quite quickly. I hope he will be able to join us soon so that at least we can tackle some of it. In as much as we may, due to time, not be able to go into too much depth about everything, but I'm sure he will be able to share some key information with us, particularly in terms of how the results of the survey will be used, as well as the campaign, the Smoking Deterrent Campaign. And when we talk about the Smoking Deterrent Campaign, it also means that we'll be talking about the smoking in public spaces, which we have already spoken about on this program with Mr. Paul, but he will have to revisit that so that we can get a better understanding of what the campaign is all about. We have a comment here from Ms. Gloria Leon. It's interesting that in London, the young people are not choosing to smoke as we did back in the day. So that is very interesting. Thank you for that comment. And I am sure Mr. Paul will have something to say about how our young people see tobacco. So Mr. Paul is here. Mr. Paul is here. And welcome, Caleb.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Welcome, Caleb. Good morning.
Nice to be here. I'm sorry that I'm late. Some things
It's a
I had to
pleasure to
handle.
have you.
All
So
right,
for
thank
those
you.
of you who are viewing, I'm sure you remembered earlier I said somebody was smiling at me. So this somebody is actually helping me with the technical aspect right now. Probably want to give me a little calotte because she already explained everything to me. Thank you, Cabrina, Miss Epifan. Thank you so much. Caleb, can you hear me? I could hear him a while ago. Can you hear me now, Caleb?
I can hear you, but can you hear
Okay,
me?
so we're just working on. We can have him up. Okay, sorry about that. I was just trying to work out something there. I was trying to figure out technically. But welcome, Caleb. I
Thank
think
you.
I have introduced you, but
Okay.
yes, I have already mentioned to our guests that you would be joining us, that you are from the Substance Abuse Advisory Council Secretariat, and that we
Yes.
would be talking about the Global Youth Tobacco Survey and the
Mm-hmm.
ongoing Smoking Deterrent Campaign.
Yes.
So, where would you like to start?
Well, I would start with the basis of everything we do, which would be the survey. We
Okay.
try to have evidence-based programs at the Substance Abuse Secretariat. For the survey, it's the fifth time that we're running that survey in St. Lucia, from the year 2000 until 2025 was the last one. And what we have seen over the years, we have seen the importance of monitoring the use of our young people's tobacco use. For, people might ask how important or why is that important? Because these young people eventually grow up, and it can be a good uh, estimation as to what our population will be involved in years to come. So it's important for us to continue to measure these trends, and more importantly, especially now as the world is changing as it comes to tobacco use. Now, when we started this survey, we didn't have issues like vaping or electronic cigarettes. And now, just by observation, we can see the increase in those, I guess, issues here in St. Lucia. So, every young person knows about vaping and what vaping is. So, having down those things is very important. So, in the past couple of rounds, we started asking questions based on person's electronical use. And I can share some of the information with your listeners. One of them is we see that our young people, yes, they use tobacco or tobacco products, but the entry into it is really through the vape. So persons are not using traditional cigarettes anymore. A few persons are, but majority of persons who ever tried tobacco products came via a vape. Now that's interesting because it shows that vaping is the driving force of our young persons' tobacco use. Now, vaping is something new. Vaping is not as regulated as tobacco, well, cigarettes and so on. And even large countries struggle with regulating something like vapes because of how they are made, the chemicals in there, and all of that. So it's important for us to know that situation here in St. Lucia. And for us, it's worrying because in one cartridge of a vape, there are 20 cigarettes or the equivalent to 20 cigarettes in that one cartridge. So a young person might think, now there are different types of vapes. There are vapes that do not have the liquid nicotine, but with those cartridges, you can put any oil in there. You can even put THC as well. But as long as you have the device with the interchangeable cartridge, then we see, it's equivalent to using 20 cigarettes. So a young person can have, and that device can look like anything. That device can look like a pen, can look like a thumb drive, can look like lipstick, lip gloss. We even saw images of one looking like a smartwatch. So that's where it has reached, and we see now the aim of, and even with World No Tobacco Day coming, and that's something else we wanted to speak about. May 31st, the theme for this year is unmasking the pill, counteracting nicotine and tobacco addiction. We see that when the young person starts so early, it opens the way for these types of addiction. And one of the strongest addictions someone can have is an addiction to nicotine. Why it attracts them? Because the advertising is colorful. You have the nice pictures, the influencers have it, making it look like it's something that is harmless. And a lot of our parents too are not aware of what it is. And based on that information that we got in our survey, now on the heels of that, our Smoking Deterrent Campaign comes in, where now we use that information. And even today, I'm right at the secondary school. We are filming a PSA as it pertains to our that issue of vaping, and we're using our own students here in the south of St. Lucia to bring that message across, that strong message to other students of the dangers of vaping. So it all ties in. And I think as we speak, more issues like secondhand smoking is still a real issue here in St. Lucia. Our young persons are saying that at their homes they are still exposed to that. In indoor places, enclosed spaces, they are still exposed. Even outdoor places where, all of us share, like the parks, the beaches, and so on, they are still exposed. Although we have laws in St. Lucia that protects persons who do not want to smoke or they choose not to smoke, but those things still happen. And that's one of the gaps that we saw in the survey, that, our enforcement is weak in that area. So surveys are important. Getting the data is important, but it's even more important when we can observe it and see that data really corresponds to what we see on the ground. So that's why our smoking deterrent campaign is important.
So you've spoken about a little bit about the survey. Could you just remind us the age group of students who were part of the survey?
So for the survey, we had 25 secondary schools participating, and that is all the secondary schools in St. Lucia. And after all secondary schools participated, both public and private, and we surveyed from grades 8 to 10. So I believe that would cover age 13 to 15. And we know we have some outliers, persons who are younger and older, but yeah, we concentrated it on grades 8 to 10. We surveyed in all in that age group, there are 6,000 or so, 6,062 students in St. Lucia in that specific age group. We were able to survey over 4,600 of them. So the information that we get we can surely use that information, because it's not just a few of them, but the majority. So we had a response rate of 75% of students.
That's wonderful. So you spoke about vaping.
Yes.
And you also mentioned that in some vapes that contain nicotine, that is about 20 times the amount in one cigarette. So how dangerous is a vape as compared to a regular cigarette? And would somebody using a vape usually go through an entire cartridge in a
for a day, probably yes, because it's flavored, and person don't feel the effect right away. It's usually used in, persons are not so active and so on, so they are relaxing and all of that. And also the equivalent, the 20, it's 20 cigarettes. So I think that's like a large pack or two small packs of cigarettes if the pack has 10. And person can use that as the day goes. Now, somebody who smokes a packet of cigarette in a day, we could consider a heavy smoker, right? And somebody using, they might not even be aware that they are using so much. What's a vape dangerous or different from a cigarette? It would be all the other added chemicals. A cigarette has a lot of them too. But I mean, let's take for example chocolate. Chocolate not supposed to be, or any chocolate flavor not supposed to be in your lungs. Apple or strawberry. So the first question we ask, why my lungs should have that flavor? And that's why vaping, the industry has the danger of vaping, because they come under the mask, or that there are some almost like flavored smoke, flavors that you get normally in your food, right? So I think that's one of the dangers. But also, it has that metal component, that heating metal component, that when the liquid is finished, then you are able to get some of that metal particles, these metal particles coming into your system. So that makes it dangerous. And any electronic device can go off. So they have exploded before. So they are able um to explode, to combust in people's mouths because of heat.
I think you're breaking up a little bit. I think the internet connection is a little unstable. So
sorry about that. Can you hear me better?
yes, it comes and goes. But
okay.
So basically, when we talk about unmasking the appeal, the vapes are being marketed as practically being harmless. Do you think that the young people really understand what it is they're using?
I don't think so, and that's where the importance of our campaign comes in terms of the communication part of it, the media part of it. And as I told you today, we are filming that PSA in the South. We're hoping that will not just the students, but parents as well, to know what a vape is, to know what the dangers of the vapes are. So that part of it, where you would see pictures, you would see how persons use it. Sometimes we have the stereotype person who will be vaping, so we think that it's the boy who you probably we have an image in our mind that he's not the one who is attending school regularly or giving trouble. But what we have found, even in the survey, that majority of persons who tend to use vapes you'll be surprised to know that it's even females and not necessarily boys. Again, because of the marketing of it, because of the way it looks like it's harmless. So even all of that, when we speak of unmasking, is trying to peel back the layers of the industry have placed on that dangerous substance or product, and have persons to see what it is really. That it's not just an issue for young men. Mostly females are attracted to it. That the flavors are not just flavors, but some of them, some of the vapes would have liquid nicotine in there, and it's not a safe alternative to smoking. If anything, that liquid nicotine that enters your system is even more potent, and you can become more addicted because it's in a liquid form already. We have other issues, respiratory issues that come from vaping, that since it's so new that we don't even know as well. So it's unmasking all of those things, and the way that the tobacco industry works, it would consider the groups that it has not really tapped into yet. So young people, it's a technological age. They would, if we have them from now, we'll have them for life. So when they're addicted, they would buy cigarettes. We don't care what they use, but we'll do something to attract them, to have them dependent on us for a very long time, and we're making the money from it. And that's why now when we do our teachings, we try to show persons the cost of tobacco, how much being addicted to a substance like that really costs. So it's unmasking all of those things, showing persons the truth, showing persons the truth and the reality of tobacco use. Yes.
Okay. And how easy is it to get hold of a vape? So a young person, how easy would it be for them to get access to a vape?
I was hoping you did ask me that question because I don't want to give anybody ideas, but they are
not to give anybody ideas, but basically for parents to understand, because you spoke about how it can look like a pen, it can look
Right.
like a
Yeah.
thumb drive. So in order that we can be a little bit more vigilant and to
Right.
know how easy it is to access, because
Yeah.
some parents might think, oh, my child would never get that.
Right. It's very easy. There are stores in St. Lucia that sell uh, vapes. Um, our young persons know where to get those things. There are networks that we as probably adults, professionals, are not part of, and they are part of. Again, using social media, these there are systems under those things that they know exactly where to go. And what's unfortunate is, and when we go to the schools and so on, the young persons will tell us is their cousin, somebody they trust, somebody they know, an adult who's able to purchase, because nicotine is legal. Uh, Vapes are not regulated. An adult can buy a vape and have it, and several persons use it. And these are some of the instances that we have seen in our schools, that one person can have it. We have different levels of people in our school, persons who have access to whatever it is.
Mhm.
And that's why I said earlier, that's why we cannot just look at the boy who is the troublemaker in our mind, but even the one his mother drops to school. He has his huge bag. If his mother doesn't go through the bag, we think that he's a nerdy boy, but in that bag has something that the entire school, or no, his entire class can use, and get and start using vapes. So
Basically undetected in the school
undetected. Yeah,
environment.
yes. So I think part of our programming too has to reach to the students, not just the students, but the parents, so that they can be aware of some of the things that they look like. And that's what we're going to do during our campaign. So
Okay, so we're having a little break here. I think there might have been a break in the internet connection of our guest.
you'll not just see the things on media, the billboards, and so on.
Caleb, there was a little, sorry, just let me cut in a bit. There was a break. So if you could repeat, okay, so
Can
he's
you hear me
having a
now?
little issue with the internet when he's back. Okay, so let us go back a little bit. And I
Yes.
think you had started talking about the campaign. So if you go
Yes.
back, because there was a little break.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, um, the the campaign really has the media part. So you'd see us on, like what I'm doing today, in your radio stations, on the TV. You'd see our PSAs. You would see us in your communities. But there's also a part of education where we want to speak to parents. We want to speak to different groups of persons, workplaces, and so on, to be able to get that message across. Not just the students, but everyone who will be, interacting with young persons, persons who are interested to know that information. Um, Important as well. The campaign also has a research component, and when we have research, sometimes we think that it's just pen and paper, but we will be in Sufrek and Rees, those places, asking persons what they know about public smoking, or how do they feel about public smoking. Some of it will probably want to get you recorded, not you just phone, but your listeners. And we want them to participate. We want them to be part of it. When they see the PSAs, when they see the posters, share it, interact with it, like it, share it in their WhatsApp groups, their social groups, their youth groups. So all of us would be a part of that. So it will not just be a little group of us, but all of us will be ambassadors for that message of unmasking the appeal. And I want to take this opportunity to um, give a shout out to the organizers of the events that we had recently in Jazz. I heard good reports that there were in between messages of respecting the public and not smoking, and the reports came back that it was less than what was in the past. So I really want to take this time. I'm not sure how Sufre was, but all the event managers who took the message and ensured that everyone was able to enjoy the jazz, and that is commendable, and we want everyone to be on board. So as I was saying, whatever influence you have, when the message comes, share it, be part of the movement, and when large occasions like that can highlight such a message, we as the Ministry of Health and the Substance Abuse Secretariat, we are very happy, and we want to commend them for doing that.
Yes. I also heard about the positive feedback in terms of the smoking. I
Yes.
wanted you to go back a little, in as much as we spoke about the Global Youth Tobacco Survey and young people and the use of vapes. When we talk about smoking in public spaces, we're not necessarily only talking about vapes. We're talking about all smoking.
Yeah, all smoking.
Now,
All
one of the things, before you explain, one of the things I would like you to also talk about is what is meant by public spaces. Because I remember just recently a gentleman said to me, that's the person's private bar. What do you mean a public space? So what do we mean by public spaces? And when we talk about not smoking in public spaces?
Yeah, public spaces would mean where uh, persons congregate, persons every category of persons would be. So, example, um, like a health facility, you would have all different types of people there. Um, a beach, you would have all different types of people there. That would be an outdoor public space. A park would be an outdoor public space. Um, what we're telling persons is, you know, probably pull away, go, take yourself away from the crowd, the children, and all of those persons. Our parks might not have a designated smoking area, but consider everyone's health in doing that. Other areas like restaurants and so on, our laws
Okay, so we're having a little break.
public spaces, and of course, um, all government areas we don't smoke in those areas.
You was
And
We had a little break
facilities
with
bar.
the internet, Caleb. Sorry. So if you could go back to when you were speaking about the restaurants.
Okay. Oh yeah. So the restaurants, part of the legislation would have them having a designated smoking area, um, away from everyone else. So it's not because it's somebody's restaurant. I think everybody would want persons come. And believe it or not, when we are on the ground conversing, majority of the owners of the bars and restaurants welcome us with the no smoking sign. So it looks like persons were waiting for those signs, and having somebody behind persons don't smoke in the area. Also, although the two can be connected in terms of drinking and smoking, but um, majority of persons do not, because there are other persons there who do not smoke, and they want these persons to be respected as well. So persons who really want, I guess, or have the space to do so, we are asking them to have a designated smoking area away from everyone else, where these people can smoke. Preferably, on the outside, where not around any windows that the smoke can come back into the space and so on, because this smoke can travel and all of that. And I was saying that government places, so you don't smoke at a health center, hospital, or any of those, of schools and all of that, buses. When persons go on a flight, one of the warnings you get that you're not smoking there. So these areas where everyone is would be considered public. When you're at your private home, we cannot do that or legislate anything there. But still, we want to warn you. You might have young children around you, and them breathing in that smoke can affect them. They are your relatives. They are those you love. So you want to protect them as well from the harms that come from secondhand smoking.
Absolutely. So, in the interest of time, because we had a bit of a late start,
Yes,
can
yes.
you share with us some of the activities that we can look forward to in terms of the Smoking Deterrent Campaign? What is there anything that the public can look out for in the next few weeks or so?
Right. For us, it's really coming up next we would be in Canries, and I guess you have listeners from Canries.
Yes, we do.
In May 29th, we were conversing in that area. We just completed Mikud, was it last week Friday?
Yes.
We were in Mikud, and we had a wonderful time there. You were part of it, Louisa, as well. So we're always happy to have you. And we're hoping to have you in countries as well. Are we having that?
Yes, Caleb.
But
You put me on the spot. Yes, Caleb, I will be there.
but we'll be encouraged. So we want your listeners encouraged to look out for us, interact with us, ask us the questions, and we're hoping that it grows from there. What we are targeting to is our constituency councils. We are doing some training with them as well. So we're trying to get that information to them as well. Eventually, what's coming later would be what we call an ethnographic research. Is, as I told you, there would be different types of research. We'll be going into these areas that we know that have a high, they have a lot of festivals and so on, and be collecting all remnants of smoking devices. If it's the roaches from the marijuana or the cigarette buds, or if persons throw their disposable vapes on the ground, we'll be collecting all of that and giving a picture of how smoking is in that area we would have been. So it's
I
not.
hope that does not make people take their stuff home with them, that you actually get
Well,
it.
that would be good because what that prevents is littering. And there's also a danger of those things getting into the environment. So if they keep it home, we have won that battle there, so that they dispose of it
Well,
properly.
well,
Um,
it has its benefits, but at
well,
the
it has
same time, you may not get a true picture
right.
of what was happening at the event.
Yeah. Yes, but as I said, we want our people to interact with us. So
Yes.
as we went to Mikud, persons saw what we did. Other communities are requesting it, and that's what we want. That's what we want. We would, of course, be able to, or would have to, stagger them because we have a few coming. So I believe after Canries, we would be in library. One library requested us coming there. So however far and wide your viewership and listenership is, if persons are interested in us in coming to speak to a PTA group, church group and all of that, we are delighted to do that. That's the work that we do. But in coming weeks, you would see us on your TV, you would see us hear us on your radios, you would see our ads. We hope that you share them in your groups, be part of it. We would want also to have a special program with our young persons. What they have said is that they do not want to see me coming into their school speaking to them. They want the information coming from their age group, their peers. So yes, so we'll be having a pair-to-pair training. We are starting off in Denver in a couple of weeks, and again, persons can ask us to come into their regions to do those things.
And how would they, for those who may be interested, how would they contact the Substance Advisory Council? How would they make the
Or they can
request?
send us an email at substance.abuse@gov.lc, and I can leave my contact with them at 285-3014. They can reach me, and of course I can ensure that information they can get to their um, health educators. There's one in every region, um, so they or any person from the Ministry of Health in their region, and they can get to us with that information.
Wonderful. So, Caleb, thank you. I know you've been very, very busy this
I'm
morning.
so,
I know you had to step away from
yes,
something to be with us on the program this
yes,
morning.
yes,
I
yes,
really, really appreciate it. And
yes. I
the
could not
time
let
was
you down.
short,
And
but
thank you.
as I indicated to my listeners, having you is always very, very informative.
Yes.
So there was a lot shared in a short
Mhm.
space of time, and we really, really appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
Thank you for having us. As I said, I could not let you down. Super FM has always been nice to us, always giving us a platform to share that information. Always around this time of year, May 31st, World No Tobacco Day. So we are always pleased to be with you, Louisa, and the radio station again to get the message out there, and to the listeners, we are hoping that you become part of our ambassadors, our advocates. Majority of our people do not want public smoking. Majority of our people, want to breathe clean air. That's actually a human right to be able to breathe
Yes,
clean air.
absolutely.
Yes, so we we want to hear their voices, probably silently in sharing our messages and all of that. But yes, we would want that. Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you again, Caleb. And we encourage the listeners, as you said, when they see the group out there, when the canvassing is taking place in the various communities, please engage, be honest, talk,
Yeah.
say what's on your mind, have a discussion. Everybody on the team is always open to a bit of discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in Canries, you said Canries will be on
May
Friday,
29th. Yeah. Friday.
May 29th. So Canries, look out for us on the ground next week, Friday.
Yes.
Thanks
God willing.
again, Caleb. Have a
Uh,
wonderful day. I
yes.
hope everything goes well with your little project this morning.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
All
I'll be sure.
right then.
Thank
And
you.
thank you to our listeners, as always, for tuning in and staying with us this morning in spite of everything. I hope that you have gained a lot from the discussion this morning, and we look forward, as always, to your feedback and your contributions going forward. Thanks again,
All
and
right.
we will, to our listeners, we will be here next week, Monday, for another edition of Casualty 911. Bye, Caleb. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.